What would you do if your own blood turned against you? If your sister framed you for a crime you didn't commit, and your father's hand left a mark across your face instead of offering protection? That was the night my world shattered. Let me tell you how it all began. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Would you have fought back in that moment, or walked away in silence? My name is Lisandra. For years, I was the dependable one in the family, the daughter who stayed home to help my mother, the one who never missed a bill payment, the one who made my father proud with steady work and quiet loyalty. At least, that's what I thought. Then there was my sister Marissa. She was younger, prettier, sharper with her tongue. Ever since we were little, she seemed to live in my shadow, and she hated me for it. If I was praised, she sulked. If I succeeded, she whispered excuses. Her jealousy was something I thought time would cure. Instead, it grew like a venom, biding its time. It happened on a gray November morning. My father stormed through the house, his footsteps like thunder. "Where is it?" he roared. "My money, where the hell is it?" My heart skipped. The envelope. The savings he kept in his desk drawer. We gathered in the living room. My mother looked pale, wringing her hands. My father's face was red, his veins bulging at the temples. And Marissa, oh Marissa, stood with her arms folded, biting her lip, as if hesitating. Then she spoke. "Dad," she whispered, her voice shaking with false innocence. "I don't want to say this, but I saw Lisandra near your desk yesterday. She was acting strange. Maybe she took it." The words stabbed into me like daggers. "What?" I gasped, stepping forward. "That's a lie." But Marissa didn't stop. She painted her picture with poisonous precision. "She's been complaining about money, hasn't she? Always stressed. Maybe she thought you wouldn't notice." "Enough," my father snapped, his glare drilling into me. "Is this true?" "No." I cried. "I would never steal from you." But then, the final blow. My father stormed into my room, ripped open my pillow, and pulled out an envelope stuffed with cash. The missing money. I froze. My vision blurred. No, that's not mine." I stammered. She planted it there." I pointed at Marissa, my voice breaking. Marissa gasped, covering her mouth in mock horror. "Lisandra, how could you?" I lunged toward her, desperate to shake the smugness off her face. But before I could take a step, my father's hand came crashing across my cheek. The slap rang through the house. My head whipped to the side. A hot sting burned across my skin, and the taste of iron filled my mouth. "Enough," he thundered. "Do not blame your sister for your shameful actions." I staggered back, tears welling in my eyes. My mother's lips tightened, and she turned away as if she couldn't even look at me. "Dad, please." I sobbed. "You have to believe me. I swear, I didn't touch your money. She set me up. Can't you see?" But all I saw in his eyes was fury. "Pack your things," he growled. "You are no longer welcome under this roof." Marissa's smirk flickered just for a second, a secret triumph hidden in her eyes. She had won. My parents' silence sealed my fate. That night, I dragged my suitcase to the door with trembling hands. My cheek still burned from my father's hand. As I stepped outside, the November wind bit into my skin. Behind me, the door slammed shut. No embrace. No second chance. Nothing. For the first time in my life, I was completely alone. But as I stood on that dark street with tears streaming down my face, one thought burned brighter than my pain. This wasn't the end. One day, the truth would explode across that Thanksgiving table. And when it did, the silence would be deafening. The November night air bit into my skin as I stumbled out the front door with my suitcase. My cheeks still burned from the slap my father had given me, and every step I took away from the house felt heavier than the last. Behind me, the door shut with a thud, the final punctuation mark to a story I had never written for myself. The street was quiet except for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional bark of a dog. My breath came in shaky clouds, and I clutched the handle of my suitcase so tightly my knuckles whitened. Where was I supposed to go? My friends lived too far. Hotels were too expensive. And even if I had somewhere in mind, the humiliation of explaining why I had been thrown out would crush me before I reached the door. Lisandra. The voice startled me. I turned to see Mrs. Henderson, our elderly neighbor, standing by her garden gate. She had a shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders, her silver hair glowing under the yellow porch light. She was holding a small watering can, as if she had just stepped out to check her plants before bed. Her eyes fell on my suitcase, then on my face. Her lips parted in shock. "Child, what on earth are you doing out here at this hour? Where are you going?" I tried to swallow the lump in my throat, but tears betrayed me, spilling down my cheeks. I don't know," I whispered. She set down her watering can and walked toward me with surprising speed for her frail frame. "You can't stay out here like this. Come on, you'll spend the night at my place. We'll figure things out in the morning." I shook my head. "No, I don't want to bother you. It's not right." "Nonsense." She took the handle of my suitcase before I could resist. "You're not a bother. Come." Her house smelled faintly of lavender and old books. The warmth of the heater wrapped around me like a blanket, and for the first time in hours, I felt the trembling in my body start to ease. She guided me to the living room and handed me a glass of water. "Sit," she said gently. "Drink this. Calm your nerves." I obeyed, sinking into the sofa. The cushions swallowed me whole. My hands shook as I lifted the glass, and the cool water felt like an anchor pulling me back into reality. After a moment of silence, she sat across from me, her eyes full of concern. "Now dear, tell me, what happened over there?" The words tumbled out of me like a flood I could no longer hold back. I told her everything, how my father's money had gone missing, how Marissa had accused me, how the envelope had been found in my room. I told her about my parents' disbelief, my father's slap, my mother's silence. By the time I finished, my throat was raw and my cheeks were wet again. Mrs. Henderson sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. She didn't interrupt, didn't shake her head or frown like my parents had. She just listened. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. Then she said something that made my heart stop. "That's peculiar," she murmured. "This morning, while I was watering the garden, I happened to glance at your house. I saw Marissa through the upstairs window. She was holding an envelope. She looked nervous, tense, almost like she was hiding something." I froze. My glass nearly slipped from my fingers. "What did you say?" My voice cracked. "I saw her with an envelope," Mrs. Henderson repeated. "She kept looking over her shoulder, and then she disappeared into your room. I thought it odd, but I didn't think much of it at the time." A sharp gasp escaped me. My mind spun back to that moment when my father tore open my pillow and found the envelope. My skin prickled. It was her. She did it. She planted the money in my room. Mrs. Henderson's words were the missing puzzle piece, the final confirmation of what my gut had screamed from the beginning. I pressed my hands to my temples, my heart hammering against my ribs. Relief and fury warred inside me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't a thief. But none of that mattered unless I could prove it. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You don't know what this means to me." She leaned forward, her eyes soft. "Lisandra, you have to be careful. If she's bold enough to frame you, she might be bold enough to deny everything if you confront her without proof." Proof. That word echoed in my head like a drumbeat. Proof was what I needed. Later that night, lying on the guest bed she had prepared for me, I stared at the ceiling in the dark. My cheek still throbbed from my father's slap. My soul still ached from my mother's silence. But beneath the pain, something else began to burn: determination. I whispered into the darkness, "I will not let her destroy me." The plan formed slowly, piece by piece. Confronting Marissa in front of our parents now would be useless. She would deny it, twist the story, cry her crocodile tears. They would believe her again. No. I needed her to admit it in her own words. Something undeniable. Something I could put right in front of my parents, so they could no longer pretend. I would call her. I would tell her I wanted to talk, away from the house, away from listening ears. I would make her feel safe enough to slip. And while she thought she was winning again, I would be recording every word. Only then would the truth be mine to hold. I closed my eyes, clutching my phone to my chest like a weapon. For the first time since being thrown out, a flicker of hope stirred inside me. Next time we met, it wouldn't be me walking away in tears. It would be her. I barely slept after Mrs. Henderson's revelation. Her words replayed in my head on an endless loop. I saw Marissa with an envelope. She looked nervous. That was it. That was the crack in the wall. Now, I just needed to widen it until the whole house of lies came crashing down. By morning, I had a plan. I texted Marissa. Meet me at the coffee shop on Willow Street tonight. Just us. I don't want Mom and Dad to hear this. For a long time, she didn't answer. My heart pounded with every passing minute. Finally, her reply buzzed on the screen. Marissa, fine. 7 p.m. Don't make a scene. A smirk tugged at my lips. Oh Marissa, you had no idea. That evening, I slipped my phone into my coat pocket, the voice recorder app already open and running. I sat at a corner table, nerves buzzing through my veins. Every second felt like an hour until she arrived. And then, there she was. Marissa, dressed in her perfect coat, hairstyled, walking in as though she owned the world. She spotted me and rolled her eyes. Lisandra, she said flatly, sliding into the chair across from me. This better not be another pathetic attempt to make me look bad. I forced myself to breathe evenly. Stay calm. Don't attack. Make her talk. I don't want to fight, I said softly, folding my hands. I just want to understand. She raised a brow. Understand what? Why, I whispered, meeting her gaze. Why would you tell them I stole from Dad? Her lips curved into a sly smile. Because you did. I leaned forward. No, Marissa. You know I didn't. The envelope, it wasn't mine. And I think you know exactly how it got into my room. She shifted slightly in her seat, eyes narrowing. Careful, Lisandra. Accusations like that can backfire. I clenched my fists under the table. The phone in my pocket recorded every word. I'm not accusing, I said gently. I need to hear it from you. Because Mrs. Henderson, our neighbor, she saw you. Her face flickered, just for a second, before she forced a laugh. That old bat? Please. She probably saw the mailman. She said she saw you holding an envelope, looking nervous. And then you went into my room. Marissa leaned back, crossing her arms. Even if I did walk into your room, so what? Doesn't prove anything. Then tell me, I pressed, my voice trembling, why did the money turn up under my pillow the exact same day? Silence. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes darted away, then back to me. You always were dramatic, she muttered. Maybe I just put it there to teach you a lesson. To show Mom and Dad who their perfect daughter really is. My breath caught. My heart thundered so loudly I thought she might hear it. There it was. Not a full confession, but close. Too close. I leaned in whispering, so you admit it. You planted the money. Her eyes widened. She realized too late what she'd said. I know. That's not, you're twisting my words. But it didn't matter. My phone had captured every syllable. I forced a smile, masking the surge of triumph in my chest. I just wanted to hear it from you, Marissa. That's all. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. You're insane. Don't think anyone will believe you. You've always been desperate for attention. And with that, she stormed out of the cafe. I sat frozen, my hands shaking, my phone still recording. She thought no one would believe me. But soon she would learn, proof doesn't lie. I watched from Mrs. Henderson's porch as the backyard lights flicked on one by one. Our picnic table was dressed like a celebration, platters of roasted turkey, bowls of glazed carrots, 2 pies cooling on the rail. My aunts and uncles had drifted in early, filling the garden with chatter and the clink of cutlery. It would have looked like a perfect evening if I didn't know how rotten the core was. I tightened my grip on the phone in my pocket. The recording sat there like a live wire, small, invisible, undeniable. Are you sure, dear? Mrs. Henderson asked, voice low. This will change things. That's the point, I said, and stepped off her porch. I crossed the narrow strip of grass between our houses, the November air carrying the buttery smell of dinner. Conversations slowed. Heads turned. Forks paused in mid-air. I felt the old bruise of humiliation rise in my throat, but I did not stop. My father spotted me first. His posture stiffened. "Lisandra," he said, standing up so abruptly his chair scraped the flagstones. "This is not the place." "It's exactly the place," I answered, keeping my tone even. "You said I wasn't welcome under your roof. Well, the truth is." A murmur rippled down the table, my aunt whispering to my uncle, a cousin choking out a quiet, surprised laugh. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. She rearranged a napkin that didn't need arranging. Marissa sat very straight, her smile polished to a mirror, reflecting nothing. "Leave," my father said, quieter now, as if volume could contain the mess. "We will discuss this privately." "We tried privately," I said. "You believed a lie privately. You hit me privately." The words cost me, but I didn't stutter. "Tonight, we do it in daylight." I pulled the phone from my pocket. For a heartbeat, all I heard was the heater vent rattling and a fork tapping a plate. Then I pressed play. A thin hiss, the familiar hum of a cafe in the background, and then a voice, my own first, calm and measured in a way I hadn't felt. A question laid out like an open door. And then another voice, bright and careless at first, sharpening as it stepped through that door. I didn't speak the words back to them. I didn't have to. They poured out of the tiny speaker, pieces of a conversation that slipped past stubbornness and pride. The tone that mocked, the careful phrasing that pretended innocence, the exact moment the mask slid, those were the things that mattered. Not a transcript. The sound. The intention. The admission hidden in a sentence that should never have been said. I watched the noise travel across faces. An aunt's hand rose to her mouth. My cousin's eyes widened, then fixed on his plate. A chair leg scraped as someone shifted away from Marissa without seeming to. My mother's fork fell, a quiet, metallic tap. She finally looked up, and I saw her hear what I had heard alone last night, the rhythm of contempt, the smoothness you only have when you think you're safe, the tiny, irreversible slip. My father's jaw tightened. He didn't blink. He was listening not just to what the voice said, but to how it said it, the way it bent truth like wire, the way it glanced off responsibility and landed squarely on me. The recording didn't run long. I had asked what I needed to ask, the voice had given what it couldn't take back. Near the end, there was a scuffle of chair legs in the cafe, a sharp inhale, my own restrained I see, and then the click of me stopping the conversation before fury could ruin the evidence. The backyard was silent when the audio ended. The night felt bigger, the string lights humming like power lines. No one asked me to play it again. Across the table, Marissa's smile had frozen into something brittle. It was the look of someone who hadn't prepared for the world to turn all at once. A pulse jumped in her neck. She tried to speak and found nothing to stand on. My father's gaze shifted to her and stayed there. He didn't say her name. He didn't need to. My mother's hands trembled on the linen, then flattened, as if smoothing a bedsheet over a truth she could no longer tuck away. Someone, an uncle maybe, pushed his chair back. It squealed. Another aunt cleared her throat, that practiced sound adults make when a child has been caught red-handed. The neighbor's dog barked once and went quiet again. "I wanted you to hear it," I said, my voice steady. "Not my version. Not hers. Just what happened." My father's mouth opened. Closed. The man who had spit judgment at me, like nails, suddenly had nothing to throw. My mother's eyes were shining, not with tears yet, but with something heavier, recognition, shame, the beginning of understanding. Marissa reached for a glass of water and missed it. Her hand knocked it over. The spill crawled toward her plate and soaked the napkin as she snatched it up like a lifeline. A few drops slid off the table edge and darkened the stones by her feet. "This is a performance," she said at last, but the polish had cracked. "You all know what she's like." She edited it. The sentence collapsed under its own weight. Even lies have to stand somewhere. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, the screen still warm against my palm. I hadn't come to shout. I hadn't come to plead. The garden held its breath. Beyond the fence, I sensed Mrs. Henderson at her kitchen window, a quiet witness who had watered her garden and seen more than anyone wanted to admit. I didn't need her to step outside tonight. The truth had already stepped out for her. My father finally spoke, but not to me. His voice had dropped into a register I remembered from childhood, the one reserved for when something expensive broke and there was no one else left to blame. The table didn't move. The food went cold. Somewhere in the alley, a car door slammed, ordinary life continuing as if ours hadn't just bent. I straightened. You told me the only thing that mattered was proof, I said softly. So I brought you proof. My mother flinched like I'd touched her. She looked at me then, really looked, as if seeing the outline of what she'd refused to hold. My father's shoulders squared, a man at the edge of choosing. I let the silence do the rest. It was the first fair thing in weeks. The wind lifted the corners of the tablecloth. The string lights buzzed. And in that small bright garden, surrounded by family and food and every reason to pretend, I watched denial loosen its grip. Thank you for listening, I said, turning slightly, ready to leave them with what they'd earned. But behind me, a chair scraped hard, and someone stood. The chair that scraped behind me belonged to my father. He rose slowly, as if the weight of the backyard lights, the hovering relatives, the untouched pies, every polite thing, had finally settled on his shoulders. The recording on my phone was already silent, but its echo still hung over the table like a storm that refused to move on. My mother stared at her plate. My aunts had gone still, faces tilted toward me, toward him, toward the space between us where the lie had lived and breathed. And Marissa. Marissa held her glass in two hands like it could anchor her. Her smile had snapped in half. Enough theatrics, she said, the break in her voice showing through the paint. You all know how she is. She's desperate. That recording could be anything. Edited. Out of context. She made it up. She's lying. The side gate clicked. Mrs. Henderson stepped in, small and straight-backed, her shawl clasped under her chin. For a beat, no one moved. Then the old woman nodded at my father, at my mother, at the table full of people who had eaten a lie and were now choking on the aftertaste. I wasn't invited, she said gently. I'm not here to eat. I'm here because I watered my garden this morning and looked up at your house. I saw Marissa at the upstairs window with an envelope in her hand. She was nervous. She went into Lisandra's room and left with nothing in her hand. No one breathed. Marissa laughed too loud. You can't be serious. She's ancient. She can't even see properly. Mrs. Henderson's eyes didn't waver. I can see when a young woman is up to no good. My father's head turned to my sister, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, he didn't blink. He didn't ask me to explain. He didn't ask for proof or papers or signatures. He looked at Marissa like a man who had left a door unlocked and come home to find everything missing. This is ridiculous, Marissa pushed on, voice rising. You're all teaming up on me. She's lying. They're lying. You're all. My father's hand came down flat on the table. Not a slap. A decision. Enough, he said, voice low. Be quiet. Marissa froze. You will not call a neighbor a liar in my house, he continued, and then his tone sharpened, cutting through her excuses. And you will not stand here and drag this family deeper into your mess. Get up from this table. She blinked, not understanding at first. Dad. Get up, he repeated. Leave. Now. The words landed like a cold wind. My aunts looked away, a cousin shifted his chair back, the legs catching on the stones. My mother's lips parted, a soft sound leaving her throat, shock or grief, I couldn't tell. Marissa stood. Her napkin fell from her lap and fluttered to the ground. She stared at me like I was the one pushing her out, like the door closing behind her would have my fingerprints on it. You think you've won, she hissed, so low it might have been only for me. This isn't over. She turned and walked, stiff, toward the gate. The latch clicked again. The garden breathed out. Silence. My father faced me. For a long second, we were two people who didn't quite know how to be family anymore. I was wrong, he said, and it sounded like it hurt. I should have listened. I should have, his voice caught on the place where apology meets shame. I am sorry, Lisandra. My mother stood too fast, chair legs screeching. She came around the table and reached for my hands with trembling fingers. Please, sweetheart. I should have protected you. I should have stopped him. I should have, she swallowed hard. Forgive us. Stay tonight. We'll fix this. Her plea folded into the air like a paper crane set on water, beautiful, fragile, already sinking. I looked at the table, the carved turkey growing cold, the pies that nobody wanted, the candles guttering in their little glass cups. I looked at Mrs. Henderson, who had said just enough and no more, who had held a beam of light steady over a dark place so others could finally see. And I looked at my father's hand, the one that had left a red flare on my cheek days ago, now open, empty, waiting. "I hear you," I said. "I do. And I believe you're sorry." I let the words find their way out slowly, carefully, so they wouldn't shatter. "But being under the same roof, it's hurting me. It's hurting all of us." My mother's eyes filled. "Please don't go," she whispered. "We can make it right. We can start again." I shook my head. "We can start again," I agreed, "but not in the same place." The wind lifted the edge of the tablecloth and set it back down. Somewhere, a fork tapped once and stilled. "I'm moving out," I said. "Not out of anger. Out of self-respect. I need walls that weren't there when you called me a thief. I need a door that remembers me as the person I am." My father closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had changed, less rage, more weight. "If that's what you need," he said, "then that's what you'll have. Whatever help you want, first month's rent, a truck, anything." "I'll be fine," I said, not unkindly. "Mrs. Henderson will let me stay a few days while I look." "Of course," she said, like we'd planned it together. My mother squeezed my hands. "Call me," she pleaded. "Even if you don't want to talk, just call. Please." "I will," I said. I meant it. I slipped my phone into my pocket, the little device heavier than any suitcase. Proof had done its work. But proof can't carry you into a future, you have to walk there yourself. I stepped back from the table. Aunts nodded, small respectful nods that admitted what their eyes had been afraid to see. A cousin whispered, "I'm sorry," as if he'd ever had a vote. My father didn't reach out to stop me. My mother didn't, either. For once, their restraint was love, not pride. At the gate, I paused. The garden behind me glowed under the string lights, warm, inviting, and not mine tonight. I lifted the latch. "Lisandra," my father said. I half turned. "Thank you," he said, voice steady. "For telling the truth, even when we didn't deserve to hear it." I nodded. "Then hold on to it," I said. "Even when I'm not here to play it back." I walked into the cool night, the sound of distant traffic folding over the quiet of our street. Mrs. Henderson's porch light winked on like a lighthouse, and I headed toward it, toward a small couch and a spare blanket and a new beginning that would start with a search for keys, leases, and a place that didn't know my worst day.